everybody. So in this video, I want to talk about the card, the Fool in Tarot. It is card 0 in the Tarot deck. It looks like this in the classic Rider-Waite-Smith deck. This is from my grandma's old deck, which is the University Press edition from like 1960 something. Maybe 1970s. I'm not sure if she got the first, second, third edition, whatever. The first one was 1960. But anyway, so you can see he's about to step off this cliff. He is totally unconcerned, and there's a little dog at his heels. All right, so I just want to talk about the major keywords that I associate with the Fool to start with. I don't use reversed cards, so I just rely on context and my gut feeling, as well as the other cards around it, to decide if it's really a more positive, negative, neutral interpretation of that particular card would make the most sense. And I basically just go with my gut. So I know plenty of people use reverse cards, and if you do, then you can just sort of like take the classic, more, I guess, positive keywords, and you can kind of distort them a little bit. Some people just sort of take it's sort of like if the energy, I mean, I don't do it, so I'm not the expert here, but for some people, it seems like if it's almost like the energy is like warped a bit for that card when it's reversed. Um, Other people I've seen say that it's like internalized. Other people have said, I've seen some people say that it's like the opposite, but most people don't tend to say that. But yeah, I haven't found it necessary. And I feel like the cards are so complicated in and of themselves that you can get that full range if you just like trust yourself to understand the context and the other cards around it, that you don't need that dynamic. And I pay attention when I'm shuffling and all the cards stay the same direction. So they never really seem to come reversed on their own anyway. Um, so it would be almost like I could do it, but I would be like manufacturing it by shuffling in that way. And I don't find it necessary. Okay. So not to say it's wrong, it's just not what I do. So I'm just going to list a bunch of keywords, and they're not related necessarily to the card being upright or reversed. I could see any of them in the upright Fool based on the situation and the reading itself. So keywords for the Fool: brave, naive, idealistic, ignorant, like blissful ignorance, innocent, starting on a new path, starting a new journey, the courage to take the first steps, the courage to face risks, to accept the unknown and accept the risks and set out anyway and like do what you're trying to do, even though you don't know what's up ahead. Um, Acting without thinking, or acting without overthinking. So like, it could be more positive spin on that. Having your head in the clouds, following your heart, um, putting your faith in the universe, taking a chance, leaping into the unknown, new beginnings, optimism, faith or blind faith. There's definitely like a youthful vibe to the Fool, whether it's like young at heart or like actually someone who's young. Um, I think that goes along with the innocence and the idealism also. And I think that the Fool is someone who's like really excited to set off on this path or to start something new. And they're not necessarily thinking about the long term, or they're not like overly concerned with what could go wrong. Um, And I think it could also be someone who's like found a new sense of like newfound independence, basically, like someone who either for the first time in their life is independent in some way, or after a period of time of not being so is now independent. And so that can be like scary, and there's a lot of unknowns, but it's also like exciting. And you just got to do it. So I think that like sums up most of it. Obviously, foolishness could be one too. That's pretty obvious. But yeah, I think that I usually think like, what kind of journey is this person on? Like, what are they facing? What are they throwing themselves into, or do they want to throw themselves into? It depends on like where in the spread it is and what the question is and what other cards are around. But yeah, that is the Fool card in Tarot, card number 0, the first card in the major arcana. So one cool thing to keep in mind when you're thinking about the Fool card is that it is associated astrologically with the planet Uranus. And Uranus is a planet that can cause sudden, dramatic, life-altering change. Um, and sometimes it's change that relates to how you need to break free from a situation or from like a box you've put yourself in. It does usually want you to think outside the box, and act outside of whatever box you've been living within. And there's definitely like that theme of freedom comes up for both the Fool and Uranus for sure. It can be disruptive, but it doesn't have to be negative. And I don't think the Fool comes across as overly negative, for the most part, even though you would think he would because he's about to step off a cliff. But like you still, he just feels positive overall when you look at him. Um, and one thing that Uranus teaches us is that if you haven't been true to yourself and you haven't been living like what would be genuine to who you are and what you need and what you want in this world, then like transits to and from Uranus in your chart can show up as you being sort of forced to be true to yourself, forced to act in a way that lines up more with, um, who you are and what is genuine for you. Um, Sometimes we need to make changes and it scares us, and we don't want to make the changes. It's easier to just keep going along with what we've been doing. And Uranus does not approve of that, I would say. Uranus wants you to be like, okay, what change do I know I need to make and I just haven't made it? And it's sort of this energy of like, choose the change before it chooses you. That's how I feel about Uranus. Um, the longer you put it off, the more disruptive it feels. If you are constantly making choices in your life that are true to yourself and that are not like based on outside expectations or some kind of mold that you feel like you're stuck in, um, if you are making those genuine choices along the way, then Uranus transits don't feel generally so crazy or so like dramatic. Um, Yeah, but just that, like, willingness to make those choices even when you don't it's not comfortable, you don't know what's ahead, you don't it's going to be something that puts you in a position that's, like, totally new for you. Like, that's very Uranian, but it's also very much the Fool. So, I think that is why they are associated in tarot. And other people might disagree about, the Fool being associated with Uranus. I'm trying to think if I've heard of anyone say anything else. I guess I could probably see maybe some people would say the Tower, but I like the Fool better for Uranus, and I like, Mars with the Tower. So, I'm gonna stick with that. So the Fool's Dog is, one of my favorite parts of this card because it always makes me think about how when we make these crazy steps, in our lives, these crazy choices, they're not really crazy, but like the choices that like everyone around us might look at us and be like, why would you do that? You know? And that's like kind of the gut reaction to the Fool in this card, isn't it? Like you look at it and you're like, isn't he going to watch out for the edge of the cliff? Like, what is he even doing? Like, isn't he scared? Why is he not looking where he's going? Like, how could he be so carefree at the edge of a cliff? Like, um, the Fool can be challenging that way. Like, it's almost funny, but it's also like, come on, like, what is going on? And then you're like, well, at least he has the dog, right? Like, the dog will warn him. Like, dogs are so loyal and protective. And in some cards, the dog looks more like it will actually pull that off than other cards. But a lot of different versions of the Fool have some element like this dog. And I love it because I feel like it's like the other people. Well, it's like a few things, but one thing it can be is the other people in our lives, like the ones who maybe like deep down we know and they know that they would never make the choice we're making or that it like scares them, but they still like support you and they have your back and they're like, okay, how can we make this safe? Like, how can we like take this independent step or this risky but brave step while also trying to like mitigate the risks a little bit. Like stay genuine, but like do it reasonably, I guess. Do it like in a way that is as wise as you can find within the Fool um, archetype, I guess. So freedom can be scary, but if you have people that you can lean on and if you have a good support system, then it can be less scary to take those big steps. And I think that this dog in the card is like a reminder that you should be brave and you should put your trust in the universe and try to like live your genuine life. Um, Even if it's scary, but you should also like really hold tight to those people around you that like genuinely have your best interests at heart and love you and like want you to be able to live that genuine life, but will like give you advice you can rely on. Like keep your like support system strong and intact. And then you can take those bold steps and be less likely to fall. So that's what I think of when I see the dog in the Fool card. I also think that the dog could be like an internal component. Like there's always like that voice in the back of your head, like, oh, well, wait, hold on a second. I just got real close there. I got to back up a step, like you're like trying really hard to just like take these chances and move forward and try something new, but like you also have that internal voice of like constantly evaluating and being like, yeah, it looks like your head's off in the clouds in this card, right? But like maybe there's like that little part of you that's like at the last second able to realize, okay, need to like shift gears there for a second. Um, and that can be helpful, like putting your faith in the universe, but then also like trying to still assess reality at the same time. So that is the dog in the Fool card. I love him. He's so cute. And I'll show at the end of this video, I'm going to show some of my favorite Fool cards, and there's like different versions of the dog. Um, and usually they're pretty cool. All right, so now I'm going to show you just like really quickly how I would interpret the Fool in various points in the Celtic Cross Tarot spread, which is like a classic that a lot of people are familiar with. It's one that I personally love. It does depend on like the question and the other cards around and like the conversation I'm having with the person that is getting the reading, um, how I would specifically interpret it, but just like give you an idea of how it can like work in any area. And there will be some overlap because it's like the same themes with like a slightly different meaning depending on the placement. So just really quickly, you in the situation or the situation as the Fool, like you are that persona or the situation is one where you are starting something new. It's like a new journey. That's usually really easy to tell what it's referring to based on the reading itself in the context. What crosses you? So what you're facing as the Fool, it's like you're facing something where you can't control the risk, you can't control the future. You need to be able to find that faith and that courage within you because there's so many unknowns, but also with it being like this major arcana card, like it's like a big deal. Like whatever you're facing is something that is not just like a minor trivial thing. It's like a really important moment for you. With the Fool as the distant past or your roots, like the root of the situation, the root like where you're coming from. I would say like you did previously set off on some new journey. You were in the past that um, archetype, that Fool archetype, like would be a good descriptor for how you were acting way back when whatever the current situation is really began. Um, and the recent past would be like the same thing, but more recently. And then possibilities like the possibility that you'll find that courage to take whatever big step the reading might be about, the possibility that you will learn to put your faith in the universe, or depending on the context, the possibility that maybe you are not paying enough attention to the risks, or maybe you need to um, really find that person that can be that dog for you in the situation and help you like ground yourself a little bit. Or maybe it's like a reading about something that you're just like really overthinking and you keep thinking and thinking and you like can't decide or you're like super anxious about it. And then you get the Fool as possibilities. And it's like there's a possibility of like letting go there, of just like being like, you know what, I'm just gonna do it. And then that being like this like really like freeing experience. So the Fool as a near future, um, it's really very similar, just like it actually happens, Um, and then the Fool as internal influences, meaning that like your your desire for freedom, your tendency to set off and do things and not overthink risks, that is like something that is driving the situation, but it's coming from within you. While if it's in the eighth position, the external influences, then there could be somebody with that uh, energy around you, or it could be like externally you're being sort of forced. You're like in this situation where you like something new is starting, and it's like forcing you to contend with that energy. And for hopes and fears, like either hoping for or being afraid of this new step or journey or risk or whatever it is, like whatever that breaking free or setting off is for you in this situation, that it either terrifies you or you want it more than anything. And that it's like a key psychological component to this reading. And then the outcome card is very similar to the possibilities, but it's like, yeah, this is really going to happen for you. Um, if you keep going the direction you're going, keep taking the steps you've been taking, and you move forward based on like your current actions and attitude, then this would be the outcome. So that is the Fool in the Celtic Cross. And of course, there are a lot of different meanings for different specific situations, but I'm not going to try to get into all of that. Like use your intuition. Like when you look at it and you see the card and you think about the question and the position, and it's like what comes to you right away, like that usually is right. Like sometimes I'll overthink it and I'll be like, it's probably not that. And then like we'll start talking and then I'll be like, I mean, it could be this, and it'll be the thing that I first thought of. And they're like, yes, oh my God, that's so spot on. I'm like, you know what? Just go with your gut. All right, so this is just a tarot spread that I designed based on situations that really have that energy of the Fool. So you're like starting something new, you're trying to be independent, you're trying to do something scary but exciting that requires courage, you're trying to accept the uncertainty and the risks involved in the situation, whether or not you're choosing it. You're trying to go off on some adventure or journey. So any of those situations have that energy of the Fool and something within the Fool that you could be embracing or working on or reflecting on. So in this spread, what I would do would be to put the Fool card, to like pick it out and put it off to the side as like just like a visual marker, I guess. And then going in order 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the bottom four being like the cliff, and then five being the Fool sort of stepping off the cliff, and then the six being the little dog. And so for the first position, it's in which part of your life do you most need to be brave, to learn to be brave? And then for the second card, how can you find courage? Three, what's your relationship with independence? Four, in which area of your life do you most need to learn to trust yourself? Five, what journeys are you about to begin? And six, what would keep you grounded and focused? I think this is a really fun spread for if you're in those kind of situations. And now I will talk about other ways that you can use the Fool card other than just in readings. All right, so what are some other ways you can work with the Fool other than just like in an actual reading? There's a lot of ways that you can work with tarot cards besides just like meditating on them, reflecting on like what they bring up for you, what they remind you of, your relationship with the key themes in that card. I mean, even just writing about them or thinking about them before you go to sleep, seeing if they come up in your dreams. Some people sleep with them under your pillow while you're trying to like really connect with them. Um, Doing like guided visualizations, but you can find some online, I think. Definitely there are books with plenty of ideas for this about like how to imagine that you're like entering the card and like what it feels like, what you see there, like that can really like deepen your connection to the meaning of the card. Um, I also like to, if I'm like really trying to work with the energy of a particular card, just like have it out in somewhere where I'm going to see it, like on my desk or something where I'll just see it. And it's just like a reminder, like, oh yeah, I'm trying to be brave. I'm trying to not overthink. I'm trying to start something new here. And I think that it can also be something that you think about and meditate on when you're trying to think about like Uranus transits to your chart, or about like how you could be more Uranian in your life if that's something you're trying to do or you're trying to work with that energy. Um, I think that it can also be really fun to make art based on the Fool if that's something you're into also. Um, but yeah, I mean, it doesn't just have to be something that you use within the context of a reading. These images are so powerful and so complex and so like moving in so many different ways. And so really just spending time with them in any way you can think of that sounds fun to you or interesting to you is super cool. And I highly recommend it. All right, so these are just some of my favorite Fool cards from various decks. They can be really different from each other. Like I love the Phantom Wise one in the top middle, um, where it's like Alice in Wonderland almost like there's like the rabbit diving into the hole and then there's a little cat just looking at her like, where are you going? And so that's a really cute one. But I think probably my favorite is the Cosmic Slumber, which is the top left. And I just love like how dramatic it is. Like she is like really off the edge of that cliff and that dog is like really holding on. So I love that energy of that card. And then the one on the bottom right is interesting because that's from the True Heart deck, True Heart Intuitive Tarot deck. And by the way, there will be links for all of these decks and in the comments of the video. But it's like she's like almost transparent. It's really interesting. So with that one, I feel like when it comes up for me when I'm using that deck, it tends to be more like an internal mindset than like a specific concrete journey. And it's funny how different decks seem to work a little differently. And the bottom left is from the Art of Tarot deck by Liz Dean. I'm pretty sure that that one is actually out of print. I was trying to find a good link for it, and I really couldn't, except for used on various websites. So I'll just link to Liz Dean's website. But I like that one because that deck isn't one that I use a lot, just because the pip cards don't have different pictures. It just have like the suits, and that's not my favorite style generally. But I really like the Fool card in this deck because, well, first of all, look at the dog. He's so cute. But also, like, I love the throwback to the Jester, which was the original idea. Like, the Fool as the Jester is like someone who is, by being ridiculous or by making choices that seem crazy to everybody else, is actually like deliberately challenging the status quo. And that's very Uranian too. So I love that element to that card. Yeah. All right, so that is it for this video about the Fool. At some point, I'm going to work my way through the major arcana, probably not super fast because I have so many other things I want to make videos about too. But I really enjoyed sharing this with you. It was really fun to find like my favorite Fool cards and to share how I work with it in a spread. And then also just thinking about like some of the elements of it, like its relationship to Uranus and when I think of the little dog in the card, it's really it just helps me connect, and I hope it does for you guys too when you use tarot and when the Fool card comes up for you. Thank you so much for watching.